Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, May 12th, and it's about 7:30 in the morning. I'm trying to put this video together between rain showers. Right now it stopped raining, so I figured I'd give it a try. As promised last week, I said I would start in my front porch this week, just to show you I've reorganized things a little. I have been fertilizing all of my inside plants, but I put some coleus out here. This lime green coleus were the first set of cuttings that I took from that coleus last year. And the second set of cuttings were the ones that I wintered over in my kitchen in a vase. And they're planted outside now. It's extremely easy to root coleus. So I got a couple of other coleus to put out here. I got a speckled kind, and then I got a purple kind. And I'm going to leave them here for the summer. Rather than coleus just being a winter thing, I figured I would embrace the color and let it be here all year round. I elevated my begonias. These are the Torch begonia. And they do look pretty when they bloom, but they are messy because the blooms fall off one at a time. My pencil cactus is still doing well. Staghorn fern is growing. That was a little teeny tiny thing when I bought it. And the highlight here is my orchid cactus. It blooms every year about this time. And it likes that spot. I haven't repotted it in many years. A friend of mine gave me that many years ago when I was working in Houston. A lot of my plants come from other people. There's an African violet. Never give up on African violets, by the way. They get leggy with time, and that particular one is leggy again. But what I'll do every now and then is put it in a larger pot and just squish it down. And the last time I did it, this one snapped off and basically had absolutely no roots whatsoever. It had about a 1-inch stub. And I figured, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I stuck it in that pot and it grew. So remarkably enough, without losing any leaves. That was probably about 2 years ago. I did try a new plant. I'm growing some Apicias. They're apparently related to African violets, and I thought I would put them in the bulb pot. And I also have a maiden's hair fern I'm trying to grow. A neighbor up the street who is no longer with us, she used to grow maidenhair ferns outside all year round. And I still have my wristwatch. It's a solar citizen. Pain in the butt to set, but it is solar, so I just keep it in the sun. And therefore I don't have to set it but once a year to change to daylight savings, and that's a quickie thing to do. Over here you see the other Torch begonia. Those were cuttings as well. It's very easy if you just take and cut here below a node and take the first 3 leaves off and cram that in the ground. It will grow. That begonia I got as a second from Lowe's, and it's doing really well. Truth be told, it's one-sided. All the leaves face the front, but it's perfect for that corner. I had put this Christmas cactus there, and I've had this Christmas cactus ever since I graduated college, many years ago. And I think I only repotted it one time. And I used to keep it on this table for many years, and it would bloom every year. And when I stuck it back there in the corner, it stopped blooming. It's amazing how 3 feet will make a difference. So in any event, it did bloom for me this year sporadically. So I'm hoping if I leave it there, it'll have a good flush of blooms. Of course, I am fertilizing. And in honor of Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day to all of y'all. I celebrated by buying a box of chocolates. My mother is no longer with us, but I can celebrate eating a box of chocolates in honor of her. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's go outside. Hopefully the rains will stay away. Here you can see the little geraniums are still here. The big news in the front is my gardenias. Gardenia jasminoides are in bloom. And I wish you could smell the fragrance. It is absolutely strong of gardenia in my front yard. These gardenias rarely get taller. I do shape them a little. Some of the bigger ones I cut back and the little ones I leave. They don't tend to get very tall, so they're a good hedging plant if you like sort of a fluffy looking hedge. My datura that I planted back there doesn't really like it, but it hasn't died. Hasn't grown, but it hasn't died. Gardenias are also called, Cape Jasmine. One problem with gardenias, though, they look really pretty, smell really good, but they also attract little black bugs inside of them. So if you bring them in the house, you have to be wary that there may be little black bugs the size of a pinhead. My 4 o'clocks look like they're getting ready to bloom here. This must be sunny enough. Apparently that one spot is good enough. The others, it's too shady. That's fine. I found a spot and I'll stick to it. It'll reseed and come up year after year there. I did lose one branch, or cut one branch on my fig tree to sort of shape it more like a tree. You can see it's only got about 3 or 4 figs. We had a terrible windstorm come through with rains. When was it? Thursday night? Yeah, I think it was Thursday night. It's either Thursday night or Friday night, I forget. But it whipped through here, dumped about 2.5 inches of rain in less than 30 minutes. But when I mean whipped through here, it was windy. And so this garden is a little the worse for wear. I haven't repaired it yet. No damage. But what it did do is it splayed out all of my camellias. And you know, since this is a camellia garden, that's not a bad thing. So I'm just going to trim up just a little bit around the edges and leave them fluffy and splayed out. Unfortunately, it kind of jerked around my white Rose of Sharon, and that does that. It's kind of leggy. It's columnar, so it tends to grow long and thin, and I just have to work my way back there and tie it up together so it'll bind it up again. My little seedling needle palm, it loves this spot, so it's doing well here. Chorus tradescantia, still in bloom. Here's one lone caladium. This is Für Elise, like the song from Beethoven. It's a pretty one. I have others planted that they don't always come up. Or come back, I should say. That one has been there for probably 4 or 5 years. When they find a spot, like me, they come back year after year and are very predictable. These are last year's Easter lilies. And there is a bumblebee working over my purple tradescantia, or wandering dude. Here's one of those places where when the camellias splayed out, it kind of took over the spot where the ginger lilies used to be. And so what I'll probably do, those are a pain, those ginger lilies. Those are the butterfly gingers. They are very fragrant. They get very tall, but they grow linearly. So you may plant them in one spot, and the next year they're here, the next year they're here. They basically move in a line away from the direction in which you planted them. So these all used to be behind the pot, and they're slowly working their way forward. So I will remove the ones in the back and find some other place for them to naturalize in. I've got a lot of seed pods on my irises, and I'm going to let them ripen and sprinkle the seeds around since irises like that spot. We'll see if they'll root there. Up in here, my hydrangea. Lots of leaves and shoots. I don't see any flower buds yet. Oh, my cassia. Besides me replacing its name, I've finally bought a pen that is rated for plant stakes. So theoretically it'll last more than 1 year. But you can see this one was that size last week, and I've got 2 of them coming up. So the cassia did make it, as did, this is new since last week, the shoot on this cycad. This was the last cycad to leaf out. It leafed out late. For some reason last year, it decided to send out new shoots like in August. And so they were so tender that they really got hit bad by the frost. And so it set it back quite a lot. That gardenia is looking gorgeous. Let's see, do I still have any flowers in the front here? This crinum is starting to bloom. Nope, the flowers are gone for now. This is the milk and wine lily. There will be others. That's one pitiful looking blossom. They're white with pink stripes. A pretty flower. That has been there for probably about 20 years. Crinums are very difficult to grow. Well, no, let me take that back. They're easy to grow. They're difficult to get to bloom. That was a single bulb planted many years ago, and it took about 6 years after planting it. It multiplied, came up, was nice and green, kind of like that. Got the or the mound got bigger, but it really didn't bloom until about 7 years after planting, and it hasn't stopped since. I did count 17 flower buds on my Opuntia. You can see how the pads have really grown since last week. Give you an idea of size. They're now about the palm of my hand size. I cut back the antirrhinums, snapdragons, and my herbs are all doing well. Lemon balm looks like it's starting to take over a little. I'm going to have to cut some of this back. I've got a couple of blackberries. I was looking forward to the leaves. That one is bushing out nicely. I've read a lot or seen a lot on YouTube about herbal teas. Supposedly, herbal teas made with blackberry leaves are very beneficial. As long as it tastes good, I'll give it a try. On this side, the artichoke is really taking off. On that side, not so much. So apparently in zone 9A, they like a little bit of shade. This is bee balm. It reverted back to its lavender color. And the dandelions, that's one way to get rid of dandelions. You dig them up from your lawn and plant them in your garden. And when you want them to grow someplace, they grow pitifully. But they're coming back, so hopefully they'll get bigger, and they are edible. Oh, another crepe myrtle coming up. Not anymore. There's a blackberry starting to ripen. My grandmother's mint, I call it Sophie's mint. Well, it looks like it may be spreading a little bit. Those were all there. It hasn't really grown, but it hasn't died either. This one has grown a little. It is a peppermint, so I don't know what to do with mints. I have a bunch of mints. To be truthful, I like to say I have mints, but I don't really use them. What do y'all use mint for? I guess you can make a drink with them. Add them to tea if you like that sort of thing. Supposedly they do soothe stomach problems. My lemongrass is getting bigger. Oh, by the way, I've mentioned before, but to those of you that are new, all of these ferns under the tree came from, they're Kimberly ferns. I think it was my neighbor Sarah, or it might have been myself. We had an old Kimberly fern that got hit by frost in the winter, and we just set a pot out, I think right about in here, and let it come back the following year, and it did. And somehow all of these ferns spread from that one pot of Kimberly fern that was left out. Now, it did take a few years for them to get there, but they are growing in pure leaf mold on top of rock, which has landscape fabric underneath. And they're growing. So whenever I can, I do try to move them around somewhere where there's a little more earth to be had for them. My Australian tree fern got beat up a little. Nothing was damaged, and if anything, it flattened it out a little to make it look more like a tree fern. Oh, I thought there was a bug back there, but that's just raindrops falling, moving the leaf. Cordyline has come back nicely. We cleaned up a little over here. Here are the other two cuttings I was telling you about from that same yellow coleus in the front porch. Those were the first set of cuttings. These were from the second set. I do like the look of a mixed pot of coleus, and it does seem to like it there. And I need to clean out the ivy from around my toad lily, but the toad lily has taken. Nothing's eating it. Always a good thing. Hopefully this door is unlocked. Yes, it is. The mandevilla got beat down from the rain a little, but it's still doing well. I did put my second batch of homemade hummingbird food in my hummingbird feeder. Apparently I never see them, but it disappears a little bit every day. Here you can see my other Easter lilies planted last year. I still have my African iris. The winds did take what was left of the foxglove, so I just cut them back. They'll get bushier, and we'll push out a few more flowers before they die. This one is spectacular over here. This Easter lily. I freed up the ginger. We spent a long time last Thursday, shaping this particular archway of camellias. We got all sides but this one, and I don't want to do this one yet until the lilies are done blooming, because invariably they're going to get stepped on while messing with the hedge. So what I like to do is cut the hedge. This is being cut severely back. You can see on this side that I cut a couple of weeks ago. It really sheared back quite a lot, but it'll come back. It'll send out shoots and thicken. And this side is what we did. Well, we did the front side and this back side. It needs a little more shaping. I'll get to it little by little. We relocated the water feature now towards the middle of the bed. And I haven't decided, you'll see next week what I decide, but these boxwoods have just gotten out of hand. And what you don't see is after the winds last Thursday, they were like opened and flattened out. They've just gotten too, I guess, strong or too heavy for their branches. So I am going to probably cut them down by about a foot. And I'm going to have to thin them out because this is ridiculous to have a 2-foot wide hedge when you have a garden as small as mine. The other thing that did fall victim to the winds last week was all of my tall papyrus that the birds didn't get. So I trimmed it back. It still looks good, remarkably enough. And I left in each pot one of these metal stakes, figuring that maybe the cardinals will prefer to land there. What I noticed they were doing is when they take their young ones out, someone always the young ones drink from that water or the water fountain, and there's always one that likes to stand guard and look for cats and other things. So I figure if I've got a perch, maybe it'll use that perch. My caladiums are all sprouting. I counted out of 41, only 15 have yet to sprout. This one just came up yesterday, pushed a clod of dirt out of the way. So they are coming back. I did dig up a camellia. That one was one I thought was a seedling camellia. Yeah, I'll show you where it came from eventually. But I want it to be a topiary. I don't really need another camellia, but I figured, well, I'll try it. So I trying to, it already was top heavy, so I just got rid of all the bottom leaves. I don't know if it's going to grow because it was not a seedling. It was a shoot that came up on a root from the mother plant. Had I known that, I probably would have just cut it off and not bothered, but the root was probably, I don't know, as big as my thumb. It was a fairly big root, and there were no small, what do you call them, fine roots near that plant. So basically that's a stick, and it looks like a T because there's a big fat root with a cut off end on both sides. It has no fine roots, but I put rooting hormone on either side of the root. I've supported it, and I've got it in good potting soil, so we'll see if it lives. And here's the sign of a true plant lover when the name tag is bigger than the plant. I bought another Nepenthes. This one was a red one. That was the size that this one was 2 years ago. And I did go ahead and clean this one up. It had an old shoot down there that had yellowed, but it grew like 6 foot long. And I couldn't bring it in for the winter for the frost. Because, well, I could, but every time I did, it made a mess because the pitchers would hit the floor and spill over, and it was just a mess in the kitchen. So I cut it back to save the plant. And it doesn't seem any the worse for wear. But that started out life the size of that other Nepenthes. This is the Nepenthes Alba. The other one is what, Rebecca Soper, I think. This is doing well. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit, so hopefully we'll be able to finish. If not, I may have to cut it short. But my iochroma cutting is doing well. You can't see it, but I've got some supports in there to straighten it up. This is a pot of Caladium Bulbs. The other caladium that I have besides Fur-Elise is, I'll put you underneath the banana leaf to protect the camera, is, Kathleen. Kathleen is basically a green-edged red leaf. Has about a ½ inch margin of green around it. It's not the prettiest of caladiums, but it is fragrant when it blooms. It smells of like a wheat bun with honey on it. It's got a wheaty smell to it. It's really a neat smell. I noticed it accidentally because I planted it in a pot, and it got kind of close to where I was sitting, and I was wondering, what is that smell wafting from? So I always keep a few blooming caladiums. Here you see a lot of blossoms on my Nico Blue hydrangea. Of course, here's where I will weed out. The good news is it's that time of the year that the oxalis is dying back. Yay! And we won't see it again until late fall, early spring. But that's where all the white caladiums are going to go. Here you can see how the Yellow sedum has spread. I weeded this yesterday, and I forgot sedum is a little delicate when you weed around it. It's very easy to break it, but it's easy to pot. My various and sundry succulents in the sink are doing well, and I did go ahead and clean up my pansies. I figured they'll go out in fashion. Clean the pot up nicely and let them come back. Here you can see the wild alstroemeria. Looks very similar to the store-bought alstroemeria. Oh, I wanted to show you inside. I did open up the garage. I did pot up my white angel's trumpet cutting, and it was in water for 2 weeks and 2 days, 16 days. I wish you could have seen the roots, because when last time I showed you, there were little dimples, so it's got some kind of bug up there. I'll have to spray it again. And when I potted it up 2 days ago, the roots were already about 4 inches long and a nice cluster of them. It almost looked like a healthy onion that you just yanked out of the ground. I still have my poinsettia blooming nicely. The flowers will probably hold on through the summer. It likes that spot. And you know me by now, if something likes a spot, I let it stay there. The one thing by shearing back this camellia hedge is now these poor arborvitae are exposed. For all intensive purposes, they're a bonsai, because they've been in that pot now for 4 or 5 years. I probably do need to put some fresh dirt there. And if truth be told, they are one-sided. But that's the secret between you and me. Here's my star jasmine, still in bloom. Trachyospermum jasminoides. Oh, the other thing I learned this week, finally, you're never too old to learn. I may be an old man, but I am a young gardener. More alstroemeria blooms. You can cut them and bring them in the house. They do last a good long time. Ooh, this angel's trumpet is in bloom. Let's see if it has a scent yet. No, not yet. They really open up at night, and that's when they become scented. Yellow jasmine is not really a jasmine at all. Its Latin name is Jasminium sempervirens. Sempervirens just means evergreen. It is, you don't want to get them confused, because every part of that plant is toxic. The alkaloids in it are very similar to strychnine. So leaves, roots, flowers, everything toxic. Now on the flip side, the jasminoides, oh, there's a squirrel running across the top of the fence. He was eating loquats. This jasmine is edible. The flowers, I don't know if the leaves are, but I know the flowers are. As are, believe it or not, gardenias. So, little tidbit, make sure you know your jasmines before you start eating them. Here you can see my lantana I opened up. I worked this bed over, and I see, although I pulled every darn weed, apparently I still missed a couple. Let me get that now while I'm here. One less weed in the world. The nandinas are starting to bloom, and they really attract bees. Bees are very particular for nandinas, and of course that's what gives you the nice red berries in the fall. You can see that holly is starting to look a little more presentable. Not as nice as the other holly, but it'll come back. And here I went ahead, this volunteer pecan grew quite well last year, but for some reason, I guess the frost or something made it go a little wonky on the top. And although it may have volunteered itself, it's now living under my rules, and I wanted it to be a little more even. So this branch was about up to here, about maybe 1.5 feet taller. So I cut it back to try and keep it symmetrical. The pink angel's trumpet is doing well, except the winds splayed out that, what is it, bottle brush. I'll need to tie that back. Blueberries are still ripening, but haven't made yet. This angel's trumpet is looking gorgeous. That one I bought last year, but it was a well-established plant. And it likes that spot, needless to say. Here, oh, I have to remember. I keep bypassing it. Let me go straight there before I forget. The blooms. Oh my God, I didn't notice the others. Pinto palm. That bloom is already setting fruit. I probably, for my sake, should go up there and maybe try to remove that space or cover. But it's already exuding a sticky sap. It smells very fruity and kind of somewhat like butterscotch. Here you can see one in bloom and a second one that is setting fruit. We'll watch the progress of the fruit. They should turn orange and they'll fall all over the ground. It's an easy palm to seed. I had seedlings. The squirrels will get the fruits and bury them all over, and I had one come up next to my ramp. Of course, it wasn't a ramp at the time. Unfortunately, I thought it was a needle palm, but it turned out to be a pindo, and I let it grow too tall that it was blocking access to the stairs, and it's like, nope, this has got to go. And there was no digging it up, because under those bananas, which I also haven't mentioned, the bananas are coming back. Underneath the bananas is hot and cold water that runs to the washing machine that's in my garage. So I couldn't really do a lot of digging because it would tear into those lines. And I totally reworked this area. Of course, it doesn't look that much different to you because you can't see it yet. But Owls 5 and dime, where I got all my Caladium bulbs, they've got a sale. I should say Caladium corms, but everyone calls them bulbs. They are now 50 cents or 49 cents a piece. So I went and got me 3 more dozen, and I planted some furries over here, and a clump back in there, and a clump over here. And I also put some in these 2 pots that have the violets. The pots look so good there that I thought I'd leave them and just let caladiums come up in them. Okay, let's see, back to Nandinas. Lots of flowers. Oh, you can also see these cycads have leafed out nicely. And I did clean up my lady palm. It's Rapsis something or other. It always looks good when you cut the dead brown off of it, because the yellow or the brownish color of the leaves really draws your attention to it. And this is how it multiplies. See, here is a perfectly good root cutting, I guess you'd say, of that. I'm going to let it stay there. It doesn't seem to take well to rerooting in a spot where it doesn't want to be. At least I took one of those cuttings and put it back here. And, oh, some more furries. Caladiums. You can see that it's got nice and green shoots at the bottom, but it's going to take a while to come back. Underneath that spot was where there is a stump of an oak tree. So I keep throwing potting soil on top of it. It's probably decaying by now. It was ground down below the surface, but it slowly is rotting away. And in any event, I thought I would try and grow the lady palm there. It does. Lady palms are one of the few. You can see it did grow, or it did come back. They're one of the few palms that will tolerate deep shade. Most palms need light, sunlight, but lady palm will do well in shade. And so does the needle palm. I've had luck with needle palms all over. This is the north side of my house, so the needle palm that was the first needle palm I bought, was this big one over there. And it does really well in a north exposure. But it also does well, as you can see by the garage, way over there in full sun. So needles seem to do well everywhere. Vincas in pots are still doing well. And you can see, that's one of the other reasons I like Vincas, is they look just as good in the shadier pots as they do in the sunny pots. Of course, the sunny pots, truth be told, need to be watered more. So Vincas are one of those good plants that will perform quite nicely, not in deep shade, but at least in partial shade as well as sun. And I've got some flowers coming on my kumquat. Just noticed that. Bunch of them at the top. And I guess that's about it for the day. I'll show you the bananas. It's been a while since I highlighted those. These cycads, for all intensive purposes, this is the 6-foot mark because that's eye level for me. So they are huge. But you can see how the bananas have come back. I've got 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 of them. And actually, one interesting thing about bananas that I had forgotten is, you may remember last week I said this particular leaf was not long for this world because it was laying flat on top of the witch hazel. And you can see within 1 week, it is now about 1 foot off the top of that. So I forgot that the stems elongate. Bananas aren't really a tree. They are, of course, a grass, or related to grasses. And there is Miss Mimi looking longingly at me. She does not want to come out. She wants me to come in. She has done out for the day. But there you have it. I hope you all have a good Mother's Day. Call your mother, even if you sent her a card. And I hope you all get to get out in your gardens and enjoy them. See, even today on a overcast, somewhat drizzly day, there's a lot of beauty to be seen in the garden. Take care.